way, I'm going to show something that she showed us in other occasion, and I'm new in educational solutions team. I'm not doing at SOLAP. I've worked at SOLAP since 2018, but I'm new here. Even though I believe I was checking the teachers who are going to participate in this meeting, and I've already visited some of these schools, Dinâmico, Piritubano with Camila. So some people who are about to arrive are already here. I from by name I don't know about you, Juliana. Fabian, Isabel, if I have known you before, if I have been in any schools that you are. But well, I'm around now, and I've been with the team more than a month. And I've worked at Solap as a teacher, then as a coordinator, and basically the job that I do in educational solutions is very similar to the one I used to do in the coordination when I have to check teachers' class and give them a feedback, always in the with the idea of adjustment and to make a better class. And also, this is part of my presentation today. I'm going to start sharing. This is the, just a moment, the title. Can you see in presentation mode? Very good. So planning a lesson starts with A or with ACE. And I like to have reflections about class preparation and how to make it better. And of course, the idea here is to help you all out and to make a better work, present better classes for our students, and especially in this moment of preparation, things you need to have in mind. And to start with that, with this reflection, I have here two pictures of these two places that I believe everybody has already been to, which is a drugstore and a supermarket. And I see a connection between those places and class preparation. I believe that you are a little shy by this moment of the presentation, but do you have any idea what is the similarity between these places and class preparation? Camila's face. Well,
No
I
idea.
see, right, I see a similarity when we go to those places without a list, and the same thing when we uh, start a class without a very clear goal in mind. So, for example, when you go to the supermarket without a list or without knowing what you're going to buy, or even sometimes when you go with the item you want to buy in mind, it's very common you get distracted, you get sidetracked by other items that you have there, especially in that line moment that you have all those very interesting items, chocolate and well, not nowadays, but in the past, you used to have magazines, so you're always distracted there. And the same thing, especially with me, happens when I go to the drugstore. I go to buy cotton, and when I get out, I bought 400 reais in the card. So uh, I see a similarity with the class preparation because sometimes you have something in mind, but we have this amazing number of activities in the book or things that we find in the internet that it's very easy we end up losing the idea of our goal. So sometimes you want to For example, your goal is to have the students talk about their families, and you had this amazing class with games about family members, about family vocabulary, and students had a lot of fun making exercises, sometimes even grammar exercises. Teacher had this ability of making grammar exercises very interesting, but the main goal, that is the student make the student talk about their family, was not achieved. Or even sometimes, if the goal was achieved, it was uh, disguised in many other things, or not the proper time was not given to that activity, which was supposed to be the main activity of the class. So that's the similarity that I find between preparing classes and you go to those places with, as we have in class, many interesting items in them. And to help out with this reflection, I brought something. Actually, I stole something from Dani Mantovani's presentation, uh, exactly when she was talking about class preparation. I have here, this is her slide, in which she has some reflections when you are preparing classes, and I want you to focus in the first two. What's the main goal of my lesson, and what are the possible stages of this lesson? Uh, so sometimes throughout class, remember, class is a living thing. Yes, sometimes we start with an idea and something changes in the middle, and that's very okay. No problem with that. But something that we should bear in mind is always the goal that we have for the classroom. And these steps, not, I wouldn't say steps, but these important reflections that we have to make while preparing classes, that Daniele brought us in one of her presentations, uh, are good ways to not make us lose track of where we want to get. So if you have your goal in mind, it's very important to know all the rest, and especially to not spend more time with other activities than the one that was the most important for your class. And I have here this saying by Scott Thornbury, which is a very important academic and a mind in SOLAP uh, academic activities, in which he says speaking activities are often simply exercises in vocalizing grammar. So this is a very common example when you lose track of your goal in class. So I'll go back to the example that I used previously. Let's suppose that your goal in class is to make students talk about their families. So this involves uh, making students have to making students be able to use very well, for example, danitives. She is my father's sister, for example, making they use possessive. This is my mother, etc. This is her father, and so on. But sometimes we focus too much. And of course, I'm using here a very simple example, which is family presentation. But when you imagine this going to more complex conversation types, you can imagine how far this can go. And sometimes you focus a lot on that, and by the end of the class, you have little time for students to present their families, and your going class wasn't achieved, even though you spend a lot of time preparing students for them for that. And so that's I guess my presentation talks a lot with the previous presentation we had, the previous session we had here in CELAB, which was about like meus alunos estão só preenchendo o livro. Do you remember exactly the title, Camila? I guess that was it, yes?
Será que meus alunos estão somente preenchendo os livros?
Yes. Será que meus alunos estão somente preenchendo os livros? So I guess that's a perfect example when we lose track of our goal in class. And I guess my presentation will talk a lot. We have a conversation with this previous presentation we had, because this is something that can happen when you lose the goal, the objective of your class. You lose a lot of time making students do grammar exercises or having input, and they have almost no time to to vocalize something besides grammar. Okay, so let's talk about this guy now, Scott Thornbury. I'll have a little presentation as he's like the basis of my his theory is the base of my presentation, basically. So he's from New Zealand. He's a teacher, so like he knows what he's talking about. He is a teacher trainer, and he writes books, especially talking about English language education. Uh, we have a lot of videos on YouTube where he presents techniques that he uses in class and all the theory behind his classes. And he has lots of books on methodology, language methodology. And because of these books, he was 2 times awarded a British Council Elton Award for innovation in English language teaching. So a very important person, especially for SOLAP, as most of his theories, especially the one that I'm going to present for you today, is like in the core of our classroom and our observation to have this. And one provocation that Thornbury uh, presents is this one. How do you convert a seemingly inert knowledge of words and grammar into fluid speech? So everybody knows, we as teachers know that students to achieve fluid speech, they have to they have to be presented to all these that we use in class, like vocabulary, grammar, language structures, etc., etc. But what is the bridge that you go from one thing to the other? How you make this student who knows a lot about possessive and genitive, he can use it perfectly. Okay, now how can he use these things to talk about his family, which was your main goal, and in a fluid speech? How you go from one thing to the other? Well, accordingly to Thornbury, one thing that can help us, or like the main goal, the key for the secret for that is this the class divided in these 3 moments, which are awareness, appropriation, and autonomy. I'm certain that if you have already seen any of our sessions, the refreshers, you are already familiar with at least with the words awareness, appropriation, and autonomy. I will talk more about each one of them in my presentation today. But according to him, this is something that you always should have in mind when you are when you are preparing your class. Like, okay, I have this goal. So when I say I have this goal, I mean that's what I want my students to achieve as they get to the end of the class, or at least in any moment in this unit. But to make that, to achieve this goal, what is the moment of appropriation? What is the moment of awareness? how I have to work very well these two parts, awareness and appropriation, to make my student achieve the goal I want. Okay, so I will start presenting these items. And guys, this is very theoretical, so feel free to interrupt me if you have any question, okay? So the most simple of them, which I find in basically every class, is awareness. This is also known as the input teachers give to their students, which is the language they are exposed to once you are presenting any topic. I'll go back to the topic of family. So, uh, like, if your goal is to make the student talk about his or her family, you know that you have to present the vocabulary of family members. So, and by the way, this is something that most of these students, when they get to anos finais, they already know. Yeah, so at least the ones that they use more, like mother, father, this is something that they already know, and they probably have some trouble learning the new ones. Yes, like padrasto, cunhado, etc. This is could be something more, harder for them, but most of them they know. So you have, let's say, an awareness phase that can be faster because of that, depending on what you want to make your students achieve in that. But of course, we are also talking about awareness in the moment that we present language structures. In this case, as I was saying, the genitive, the possessive, and so on. Uh, so the awareness is just making these students know about the existence of those words, of those language structure, and this can appear, for example, in a vocabulary list in the beginning of the unit, or as teacher creates a game, or when they are, for example, making a listening which they follow on their books. They're also going to check there the all those language forms, even though they don't exactly know what they are, they're going to be present to them. This is what we call awareness. No problem. Is awareness very well explained? No question. Can I go to the next one? Yes, Camila?
Can I say something, Vinny? I'm so
Please.
sorry to interrupt you. The awareness moment is also a moment for teachers to think about engaging students into the subject. What is engagement? To make your students feel curious about the topic, to make them interested in the topic. This is something very important because sometimes I tell teachers, sometimes your students are not interested because you didn't bring their interest to you and to the lesson.
Yes, very well put. Perfect. And this is a moment in class which is particularly easy to make the students feel interest, especially in uh, fundamental, because you can present a game, you can work a lot on vocabulary, and this is the fun part of the class, or at least the least difficult part of the class. Yeah, so it's not something that demands a lot besides creativity, and this is something that teachers have a lot. Yes. Well, after that comes the appropriation. So this is really the moment, uh, as we were, as I was mentioning the previous session we had here at Solap, that students are uh, making something with their books and doing exercises, because the idea is to appropriate. Of course, you can appropriate many ways, especially in speaking. I like this when Thornbury says better others. So the idea of there is a better other, that is someone who knows language better than the student. And I think like when you're thinking about the basic levels, this better order, of course, will be the teacher because everybody is in a very A1, A2 level of language. But when it comes to uh, higher levels, you can consider this experience being exchanged with other partner, with other student. And something that I hear a lot uh, uh, on teacher about teachers, what teachers tell me a lot is that they have these groups with these heterogenic groups, like you have different students with different levels in the same class. So this is also a way to make this problem a benefit. Like if you have a better student, you can use the student to help the other with the appropriation. Like not only you're gonna have more teachers in class once you need this help. And so that's how appropriation takes place. There is a person who is going to help the other to appropriate that language that he or she already knows about the existence, but they don't necessarily know the use of it, and they're going to see now how it is used, like a guide by the side. And you can do this by not only by exposing your student to the language, but also making exercises, making those very guided practices. And something that is going to happen is that there's going to be a moment in which you are going to regulate that language that is taking place, and to make that student in one moment knows how to correct himself. Uh, I'm thinking about, for example, when we are teaching the present, the simple present, especially in the third person, is very common. Students say, for example, he have a ball or she play every day, instead of using the proper conjugation with the has, plays, etc. So there is this moment in which the teacher is there to correct, and sometimes even by saying like the repeating what the student said, they can self-correct that. So for example, let's suppose a student is talking about what he or she did in the previous weekend. So what did you do on this weekend? Last Saturday, I go to the mall. You go, or you just make like that, and the student already correct himself. No, I went to the mall. So this is a way to help your student go from this moment of uh, in which the other person is correcting him or her, and now uh, he or she is going to correct themselves. Uh, so this is what we call about appropriation moment. Like the student is experimenting the language, very guided. It's not his or hers yet, but it's going there. Like by making exercises, it's coming to this conclusion of how that particularly piece of language works. Yes, no problem about appropriation. No questions. So these are the two moments that are very common in class: awareness and appropriation. And then Thornbury presents the next one, which is like the one of the main goals in class, which is the autonomy. So the autonomy is when a student really owns the language. Everything that he was presented to and he was experimenting, now he knows how to use. Of course, that doesn't mean that he or she will never commit any mistake, but they are somehow making that language theirs, like in the way they use. And that's why autonomy is very, I always correlate that with personalization in many levels of the word. Meaning, for example, when you give your own opinion, so you are personalizing once the opinion belongs to you, or even when you're talking about yourself, like you're talking about some personal characteristics you have or things you do, for example, in your free time. Everything that includes personalization is a way to deliver autonomy because the student is now making use of the language that he was presented and that he or she uh, was appropriating based on someone else's example and someone else's life, and now they're going to make theirs. So that's the moment in which autonomy happens. And of course, for that moment to happen, a student uh, must have had the moment before in which he was using the language a lot. Uh, you don't go from one thing to the other like fast, but like helping the student experiment a lot. Another uh, way to see autonomy is that they need to have that in real conditions, which means something that is meaningful to them. Yes, you're not going if you have in your class 12-year students or teenagers, you're not going to present uh like something related to experiences that they have never had or thought about. For example, the word of work, which is something that for them is very abstract. Again, that involves a lot of personalization, that involves a lot making the language theirs, and like to make everything that they appropriate useful, they need to understand that they can use that in their lives. So most of the cases to have this is to come up with subjects and things that they are familiar with, things that means a lot to them. Okay, so this is the moment in which autonomy happens. Well, that's the main goal of the class. Make your student make all the language that you present and the language that they that you have students appropriate from you or from the book or from their classmates theirs. Okay. Any questions about autonomy?
Vini, Ana Clara said on the
Mm.
chat that
Oh, by
everything
the
must
way,
be.
I'm not seeing the chat, so if anybody
No, no
asks,
problem.
tell me.
Ana Clara said that, guys, you can turn on your cameras and your microphones, please, if you want to participate. This is really important for us. And
this is not Ana Clara.
Yeah, Ana Clara said it has to make sense. It must be meaningful for
Yes,
them, for students.
exactly. Again, if you have in your class 12 students, 12-year-old students or teenagers in general, and you're presenting something that doesn't have this conversation with them, you're probably not going to achieve your goal. And I guess this goes back to also other sessions, like you're going to have more indiscipline in the class, and they're going to get sidetracked easily, and so on. So once you have meaningful subjects, or which even involves you making something that the book is presenting, like nobody knows the class better than the teacher. So the people who prepare the book or even games on the internet, etc., they don't know those students better than you do. So you can always uh, make that fit in your students' class. So if you feel that that is not going to work or you need to change something that to make that meaningful to them, feel free. That's the goal. As long as you reach your objective and the autonomy in class. All right. So, guys, in my
Vini,
experience, yes,
Ana Clara said something on the chat. I don't work with teenagers, but I imagine that it must be even more important for them to talk about their own reality and show something that makes sense to them.
totally.
Not only teenagers, but also kids. Kids
Mhm.
have trouble in understanding something abstract.
Mhm.
They must be presented with meaningful ideas and concrete things. Like if you were presenting the family members Vinny was talking about, ask them to bring pictures of their family members because it's meaningful for them. Yeah,
You're making
not
something more
only.
concrete. Yes, definitely. Very good. So, guys, in my experience of observing classes, this is a problem that I find. It's very common classes in which students get awareness and appropriation of the language. However, they do not have opportunity to achieve autonomy. So, going back some slides, I'm going to Dani's slide. Like, uh, you have here this goal, and you have, but when you think about the stages of the lesson, you give a lot of time on to awareness and a lot of time to appropriation, but basically none to autonomy. So it's like the one class that should be divided into 3 steps at least uh, was divided only in 2. So this is a problem that I see, which is very common when I'm observing classes. Like perfect awareness, the students had a lot of fun, and the exercises that teacher selected and assigned very good as well. The opportunities that the students had to make those exercises is also good, but uh, they never reach autonomy. And so now I would like you to participate and tell me, even like reflecting on your own experiences. Uh, what are the facts that for you personally, or even if you imagine again with different types of classroom, teenagers, kids, that you believe it is something difficult to make them reach this autonomy. Like why sometimes our classes stop there in appropriation, or like why our classes not necessarily go to this autonomy moment. What comes to your mind? Again, you can think about your own classes, okay? Like why is this something difficult for you?
If nobody volunteers, I'm going to call the teachers I know. Should I? Can I?
If you feel better, if you feel more comfortable speaking in Portuguese, also feel free. Okay, no problem. What I want now is this sharing moment, like uh, reflecting about your own experience as teachers and why for you, or why do you believe, if not for you, but why do you believe this is the autonomy moment is a moment that sometimes we never get there.
Eu vou começar dando uma opinião, Vini. Quem sabe alguém vem atrás de mim.
All right.
Muitos professores falam que a questão do tempo, né? Eu não tenho tempo, não dá tempo de chegar. Geralmente, nos colégios, as aulas são de 45 a 50 minutos, a não ser quando o professor tem dobradinha aí, né? Até hoje eu estava conversando com uma professora que falava, eu prefiro quando tem dobradinha. E eu falei, olha só como é pessoal, eu não gosto de dobradinha porque eu acho que os alunos não prestam muito atenção depois de um certo tempo, né? Mas eu acho que a questão do time management, do gerenciamento de tempo da aula, interfere muito e nos impede os professores de chegar até a prática da autonomia, que é que a gente chama de prática não controlada, é aquela que você deixa o aluno livre, né? Eu estava falando isso hoje com uma professora de Caçapava, não é a Carla, é a Miriam, mas a Miriam não está aqui. Mas eu acredito que a questão do time management influencia muito. Nós, professores, precisamos sim aprender, né? Aí eu dedico muito tempo lá no começo da aula para o awareness e não faço esse gerenciamento de tempo e não chega no fim, eu não tenho tempo suficiente para fechar aquele ciclo da aula, do conteúdo, né? Eu acho isso importante.
Yeah.
Então, já
Good.
alguém pode vir atrás de mim aí fazer algum comentário. Pode falar, Vini, desculpa.
No, something just to add to what you said is that sometimes, depending on the topic, not necessarily the autonomy is going to come in that very first class. Sometimes you start with awareness and appropriation, and the autonomy really comes by the end of the unit, depending on the case.
Ana Clara said, I have many students who come from other schools, and the most difficult thing for me is balancing the class for this moment of autonomy. I have students who are able to speak and others who do not know the minimum vocabulary. So the difference of levels.
Yeah, I guess difference of level is a problem that especially in schools, we're always going to uh, have contact with, yes. But depending on the case, as I mentioned before, you can make use of this problem to help to make one better student help the other with the appropriation of the language. Of course, this is very has to be very controlled, but this is a problem we're never going to be without. Uh, Different levels in the same class is always going to appear, and somehow we have to deal with that. So, guys, besides time constraints, is there any other problem that you find by to reach autonomy?
Isabella said, for me, the problem is that the students are not interested in studying and they are not mature enough to understand the value of studying. Everything in class becomes a joke for them and they do not put any efforts into what is supposed to be done.
Isabella, you mentioned Isabelle. Isabelle, do you believe that because in previous sessions when you're talking about, I guess you touching the topic of indiscipline, yes, and in previous sessions we mentioned previous sessions, and I guess we also touch on that now. We mentioned the possibility of this lack of interest having to deal with something that is presented in the particular class is not meaningful to the students. How often do you believe this happens in your case? For example, do you feel that what is presented in the material you use may not have any may not reach what the student or maybe is very abstract to them? Do you have any reasons for that type of indiscipline that you mentioned? Or if there is anybody here who feels the same in their own class, if you also want to share that. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Abiana said, the issue of time really makes things difficult. I think Isabelle will take some time to answer, Vin.
All right. Well, I'm gonna show
She's
you.
writing. She's writing.
Okay, we can wait while the others think.
While she's writing, I'll add that this moment of autonomy, when we get students to talk about certain topics in a less controlled way, may seem the moment of mess, because all the students are talking and it seems that they are messing around, not doing what they have to do. And sometimes it gets out of control. And then maybe this could be something that makes the teacher avoid doing, because people from the outside may think that the students are messing around, and instead of dealing with this, they choose not to do it at all. You see?
Yeah, and let's go beyond that, Tamis. Some schools I visit, the teachers in some schools I visit, the teachers tell me that the coordination asked them to avoid pair work or group work because students get too excited and it gets out of control, as you said. And the coordination asks teachers to avoid this kind of practice without really understanding that language requires interaction.
Yeah.
Yes, and the physical thing, moving around, dragging desks and sitting close to
Make
each
noise.
other. Exactly. Yes. We have to take everything into account.
Wow, there's a lot to talk about. Isabelle answered. In some cases, yes, but not all the time. I feel like they don't really have much background knowledge on many topics, and sometimes I have to provide extra information for them to be able to produce.
Which, by the way, is a good way to deal with that. Yes.
Yes.
Like
to provide the prompts,
sometimes
scaffolding,
especially when students are in like higher levels. I'm thinking about, for example, oitavo nono, in which they already have more complex topics. Sometimes they have never reflected on that. So it's not only a matter of language, but you have to really present not only language, but the topic itself to make them use it and reflect about it and talk about it. And so at least to have this in mind is already a way to start dealing with this problem. Yeah. So guys, I'm gonna show you here some things I reflect about on why what could be some problems to reach autonomy. One of them is time, as some of you have already mentioned, but I have others here. And sorry, I'm interrupting myself. Something that I also want to comment on what Isabelle said is that sometimes because of that, because this lack of knowledge on the topic, etc., it's okay to expect something not too complex. Of course, you're always trying at least this course level, then a sentence level at this moment, especially again talking about these higher grades. But sometimes like we have to reduce our expectation to something to a simpler answer than to something like more complex or more philosophical, coming to to these students depending on the topic. So, like alternate our levels of expectations is also something that has to do with that. So, here's what I thought. Am I sharing? I'm not seeing you anymore. Okay. No? Okay. That's why. Okay, I guess now I am. Yes. So here are some hypotheses that I thought about, and you can add whatever you want. Teachers whose students are not able to achieve autonomy. So I guess this meets with Isabelle was saying. Yes, they don't have the language, or they don't know about the topic. Their reflections are not very well, this no matter the language. So this could be one of the reasons. Well, other is what Camila and Ana Clara mentioned, time constraints. And something else I thought about was autonomy is not taken into account during class preparation, which somehow is connected to the first one. Like you believe that your student or that your students do not necessarily have the language they need to achieve the goal the book is demanding. So you're going to use a lot of time in preparation, in appropriation, and you have basically no time for autonomy. Do you have any idea how to, like, thinking about these particular problems, how to help autonomy, or how to help teachers reach autonomy, even when they confront with those uh, obstacles? Let's start with the first one. Teachers feel students are not able to achieve autonomy. So let's think about Isabelle's problem. Like, you feel that your students are not interested on the topic, or they never reflect about it, or they, in general, in discipline is very present in the class. What can be done in this case? Any idea? Any solution to that?
You're too positive, Vini. There are no solutions, but there are some strategies we can use to try to decrease the percentage of students who are not paying attention, who are not interested. Because I always tell the teachers that we have to fully understand the difference between indiscipline and lack of interest. Because lack of interest is not connected to indiscipline at the very first moment. You can engage your students' attention to the lesson in the awareness moment. And then from this moment on, they will pay more attention. Of course, not 100% of them will pay attention to the class, to the activities. But if you have a quality moment in the awareness part of class, the other stages of the class tend to become, how can I say, more effective, if I can say that.
Yes.
And when teachers feel students are not able to achieve autonomy, I tell them, do not underestimate your students. try them, give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we know there are many obstacles, but give them a chance. And the more you put them to practice, to act, to perform, to do the activities, the more they will feel aware, they will be aware, the more aware they will be about it. And
Mm-hmm.
then it can raise their interest more, and it can bring these students to you as well.
Yes.
It's not a solution, it's just a strategy to try.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Sometimes even like in this first moment of the class, you're presenting the main goal for them. Like, would you like to, by the end of the class, be able to, or by the end of the unit, be able to talk about your family, be able to talk about what you do in your free time in English? I guess most of them will find that interesting. Yes.
Of course.
Well,
Make them
guys.
part of it.
Yes. Uh-huh. Uh,
Vini, sorry to
yes.
interrupt, but Anna
Please.
says here, I think it's important to always try to encourage students to speak, even when it's wrong. Some children also
Mhm.
don't feel comfortable trying because they want to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Like making the class this good environment to take risk is a way to deal with that. Yeah. So um, I was giving a feedback on to a teacher that she mentioned that every time that one student says something right or like gives a good answer, the other like mock on him or her, like for example, sabichão and etc. So I guess this really creates this type of environment that Anna was telling about. Yes. So uh, in general, these are the problems that I uh, notice that making autonomy something difficult to reach in classes. Again, if you have others, please tell. But I guess all of those problems they can be dealt with many things that we have mentioned in this session or even in previous sessions. And for example, time constraints, which was something that that most of people mentioned, not necessarily you have to reach autonomy in that particular lesson. You can find autonomy in the next one or even in the end of the unit, depending on also in how complex what you're trying to achieve. But something that is very important is for you to take autonomy into account when you are preparing the class, like these steps that Thornbury brought us, awareness, appropriation, and autonomy has to be there. Like if you end up preparing that particular lesson and you don't feel that autonomy was completely rich in that, at least okay, but I'll get to that in the next class. Like have this in mind. So guys, uh I would like us to try something more hands-on now. I'm going to invite you to check some of our books. Actually, I thought about three of them. And what I want you to do is try to find these three moments or where you can have room for these three moments in a class, like in which one would be awareness, which one would be appropriation, and which one you will finally reach autonomy. Okay, so the first one here that I thought about, I will show the books here, but if you have access to them, also feel free to catch. Uh, the first one I thought about was the book from the second year. I'll share with you here. So this is a lesson, so very simple. Like these students are about 7, 8 years old, and here you have the unit 2, Numberland. So I would like us to start here on page 31 and consider up to page 35. Okay, so take a look. This first one here, in which they have to look, count, and trace the numbers. Which moment would you associate with? Awareness, appropriation, autonomy? And why?
Ana Clara, Vini. Ana Clara said, at first, it's important to show the vocabulary. Some students will be able to count, but some probably won't.
Mm-hmm.
The first one. So which A is that? Is it awareness, appropriation, or autonomy? That's the question.
And in this case, it really doesn't matter, like because these students who already know the numbers by no matter the case, they will have an opportunity to reveal that, and the ones that doesn't, they will get to know by that moment. So these guys is what we are considering in this particular unit, the awareness moment. So you're going to present the numbers. Pay attention. In any, of course, teachers can always elicit from students, do you know the numbers in English? Probably with 8 years old, they already know some. Yes, maybe up to 10. And it's okay, but they are also they're going to be presented to that. Sometimes there is pronunciation to be correct and etc. This is the awareness moment. They will know that the numbers exist, and they'll know how to be presented to them. They will be presented to them in English. Okay. All right. So the activities that follow are this one, in which they have to listen and circle, then they have to look and color. And here, you know that in these books, you have the CFR. So for example, we have, I can identify numbers and colors. When you go to page 34, they have a listening in which they can follow in the book. It's a dialogue between Luis and Marcia, in which they get to know each other. Yes, they talk about their names, their telephone number, their age, and etc. And here you have this part where you have a cake, and the students are supposed to do some crafts here and to complete this sentence. Okay, this is basically not the lesson, but the lessons. I passed through lesson number 1 and lesson number 2. Okay, so any idea what would be the appropriation moment, the autonomy moment? This one, for example, in which students listen, circle, listen, and color. What would that be? Or another question about these lessons in particular, which one will be the autonomy moment? I don't know if I have the books there, but I have here 30, 32, 33, 34 and 35, what can be a result for autonomy?
They're typing, Vinny.
All right.
Juliana said, I guess it's page 33 and 35, but you guess it's 33 and 35 is awareness, appropriation or autonomy. Which one is autonomy? Which one is appropriation?
Probably she's talking about autonomy. Yes, 33 and 30 and 35. Let's take a look on 33. Just a second. So, once students go through page 32, in which they have to listen and circle, and 33, in which they have to look and color, they will be, if everything was good, they will be able to identify numbers and colors. Let's suppose that the lesson was very well done, and now students can do this. Can we say this is autonomy? Yes or no? Why yes? Why no?
They're typing. They're typing.
Okay.
Juliana said, yes, because they will practice by their own.
They will practice, yes. When you are making language appropriation, you are also practicing, yes? Actually, you are practicing a lot. But
there is a difference. When you are in appropriation, you are controlling their production. The teacher is more active throughout their production. And when the autonomy comes, you just step back and let them work.
Of course, in this moment, students can also work. But my point is, in this moment, once the students finish the page 33, the numbers, which is the goal of this unit, will not be theirs already. But here, when you reach to 35, take a look. They can check the numbers they learn, and now they can use to talk about their age, or even their, well, because of the age, I don't believe they have telephone numbers, but for example, the numbers of their houses or their apartments, they can use the numbers that they learned now to talk about something that is meaningful to them. Here on 33, they are just identifying. Yeah, so this is still appropriation. But pay attention, guys. To make the student own the numbers, it was taken not only one, but 2 lessons at least. Okay, so this started on page 31, lesson 1, and it goes up to lesson 2, page 35. So again, sometimes it's not every class that are going to reach autonomy, but you are always building a bridge to reach that. Okay, so that's the goal here, and that's how you identify. Okay, now that number belongs to the student. That number belongs to the student, and he can use to talk about something that is his, and etc. This particular book is tricky because we are talking about these very young students. However, I have here I talk a lot about family in the examples. Take a look at this one. Probably most of you have worked with the DC book, and you have this on Unit 6. This is my family. So we have here a family being presented. This is awareness. Yes, let me enlarge here a little bit. So you have the difference in gender. Here you have a little bit of the possessives, his, genitives. Okay. And here they have the Harry Potter family, the Harry Potter's family tree, in which they're supposed to describe. This is actually more appropriation than autonomy. They are still talking about someone else. Yes, to reach that. But then when it comes here on pages 56, for example, they have this listening in which they are talking about age, and they complete here with some verb to be. And now they have to draw their family and present their family members. So this is the autonomy moment. They're going to use everything that they appropriate, and now they're going to be able to talk about their own families. So they are making the appropriation their own. Okay. Is it a little bit more clear? Any questions? Okay. Let's try one more to finish. I thought about the unit 7 on this book here. Take a look. In this case, they are talking about free time activities, and the idea here is to use frequency adverbs. Okay. This is a higher level. This is a higher level than the ones I presented before. But for example, we start there with a listening, which students can follow in their books, interviewer, and this guy, Rafael. And they are talking about daily habits of teenagers. So here, students just have to listen and have the awareness of that language. And the same thing will happen in grammar session. Okay, awareness, checking how it works. And then you have this uploading, in which a student makes some exercises. What's that? Let me enlarge a little bit. Take a look. They have this bar here, which connects with the frequency adverbs, always, usually, sometimes, never. So they just have to complete and understand. Again, here they have, but this is always guided, very guided practice. Okay. And here, when it comes to downloading, they have to use the frequency adverbs, but pay attention. At first, they are already given the activities. So hang out with friends, go to the bed. They just have to complete with the frequency adverbs, which could also be considered autonomy if you believe that this is one of the goals of the class, like more the frequency adverbs than the free time activities themselves. But then they have this last question: work with a partner, tell him or her how often you do the activities. So now they can come up with any activities that they do. This is more autonomy. And in this moment, teacher will just monitor the action. We'll just check the students having the conversation. And like students, if they were well guided and they had the proper awareness and the proper preparation, now they'll be able to use the language autonomously. All right. Guys, is it clear, like when you find now the difference between, like, especially when you're preparing the class, how can you add awareness, appropriation, especially autonomy to your classroom? I'm finishing, so if you have any questions, this is the moment.
It's now or never. No, it's now or always, please.
Or if you have any considerations or comments. But this was my goal with the presentation, like to help you find these three parts in our books, and especially to consider them when you are preparing classes. I know for sure that you will consider awareness and appropriation, but from my experience observing classes, you may let autonomy out of the classroom, or even the classroom preparation, and we considered why this happened and how to deal with that. Okay. So guys, if you don't have any questions, if you come up with any questions later, you can always talking to us. You have the teachers lounge. Yes, exactly, Anna. It's our goal. Yes, it's something, and that's why you always have this. It's the end of these three steps. Yes, to achieve. So it's common to be the one that we have more problems with. So guys, if you have any questions later, I hope I had helped you with this class preparation and to find these steps in your class. Thank you very much for being here all this time listening to me.
Florence said, I really liked the explanations. I learned a lot and I'm going to apply them in my classes.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
Florence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the aim, the main objective.
Yes. Now it's to apply.
Ana Clara said, thank you. Julian is typing.
And of course, if now that you perhaps have this clear in your minds, as you go to the class and you find new difficulties in reaching autonomy, you can keep talking to us in Teachers Lounge and sharing your trouble.
Juliana said, thank you very much. It was great. I will for sure use in my classes. Carla, thank you very much. Juliana, are you from Semear? Colégio Semear? Because there are two Julianas. No? Okay. I'm sorry.